Hello and welcome back to the stream. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you're doing well today. I personally am doing better and better bit by bit as we move through the seasons and the days start getting a teeny bit longer again. It's still darker earlier than I would like it. I mean, even now I've got the curtains closed and the lights on because it's already dark outside, but it's taking longer and longer each day, noticeably longer, thank God. We're moving back towards spring and summer. For today's stream, I'm back on the entry I'm writing for the Royal Road Community magazine. That's currently ongoing. Little bit delayed. I was gonna write more for this last week, but that's alright. We've got until the end of the month, and I only need to write a couple of chapters, so I'm sure I can manage that. Hello, Izzy. You're a summer creature then. I'm a winter creature, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind either season, or any of the seasons, summer, winter, or in between, but while the cold and the heat are both fine, the dark and the light I definitely prefer when it's bright out. So when you get to the middle of winter, and at 4 o'clock you're turning the lights on because it's dark, that's pretty miserable. I mean, in certain countries with their cloudy weather, and it gets so grim and grey even earlier in the day, it's really miserable. I'm not even like a morning person or anything, I'm not up to greet the sun as some people are, but I do like to see it before I get up, and I've had it happen, but that doesn't happen. Not often, but I've been up and been like, oh, it's already dusk. That's kinda miserable. But yes, today is time to look at the second chapter of my community magazine entry that I've titled Pull Request. I'm actually quite happy with the title I came up with. After writing the first chapter, I was looking at creating a cover for the work, and then thinking, okay, so what do I call this though? And then I had the momentary realization, actually, I couldn't title each of the chapters after something related to computer memory. Like chapter 1 at the moment is titled as RAM. I go on here quickly. Yeah, chapter 1 is titled RAM, and I'm going to keep that theme up for the other 4 chapters, and then I went, okay, so something computer memory related. I could do something related to like databases and working on GitHub and such. Then I thought, pull request is brilliant, because the guy's job is to find dead people and fulfill the request to pull bits of machinery out of them. I love it. We love it when a plan comes together. Is one going to be called Defrag? Maybe. I'll have to see how I feel about the theming for each chapter, because I've got a rough outline on what's going to be in each one. To be honest, there's nothing about random access memory that particularly suits the first one. I just kind of thought, okay, random access and we're dropping in at a random point in the story, that's close enough. If I can come up with a better collection between each chapter title and a potential memory-related word, then I will, but otherwise... The final chapter could be called Defrag, potentially. Potentially. We don't really do defragmentation anymore though, do we? With modern, no longer hard drives, but solid-state drives. There's no disk, so it doesn't matter where on the disk the memory is. It's not like we're spinning to reach it, so computer memory defragmentation is, as far as I'm aware, not a thing like it used to be. I don't know exactly how SSDs function, if they even need to defrag. So far for chapter 2, what I've got here is the little chapter outline that I grabbed from here. when I ended up writing it, I more or less stuck to what I had outlined for chapter 1, which is pretty good. I've often written outlines for other things and then just kind of heavily deviated from them. I also wrote a little bit of... I had a random flash of inspiration for something I could do towards like the end of a book, so I just randomly wrote a bit here that will go in like the final chapter. We'll come back to that when it is time for it. For now in chapter 2, I need to have the conversation with our character's contact, have them get the new job offer, see if they want to do it, and then decide to take it anyway, because we did set up in the previous chapter that they're a little tight on money. Then, just because it's Cyberpunk and I want to take a moment, I'd like to do a little bit of city description, even though I talked about focusing more on how our main character views other people, but we can still get the vibe of the city through this. It might have to be cut, because looking at it, at what we need to do in this chapter, right, they take a job they shouldn't out of curiosity, they end up fighting some other people trying to recover the tech, they get out of it pretty much intact and looking like they've won. That could be a little bit of a squeeze for one slightly over 2,000 word chapter, to be honest. So this might end up getting cut. And after that, there you go, find the target, get ambushed, exchange some fire with the others. I'm probably gonna set up ahead of time that there's some environmental hazard. And that's how they're going to end up winning the fight. Because we don't really have the room, nor, considering the type of story it is, the reason to put in a drawn-out fight scene. It doesn't really serve any purpose here, as cool as a Cyberpunk shootout would be. So probably it's just going to be he notices something on the way in, and, like, I don't know, shoots a wire somewhere holding something up, and that lets him escape or block off his enemies or whatever. The fight needs to be over pretty quickly. We've got a limited word count to work with. And then he gets home looking like he's off scot-free, which will then be set up for the third chapter, where he looks at the cyberware, realizes, oh, this is actually bigger than I was expecting, and gets attacked. Then it's chapter 4 will be then, so this will be a longer encounter. The end of chapter 3 will be them getting stabbed or whatever I end up going with, and then start of chapter 4 will be almost the second half of this fight as they escape, and then stumble back home, and we have the final chapter 5 to just do a bunch of waxing poetic, basically. So, with this, what else do I really need to include here? What do I need to focus on? We want to... yeah, win the fight just needs to be a thing that happens for the sake of the plot moving forward. Not much more detail to focus on there, really. Find the target. There's probably some commentary we can make here of the story. So, focus how he describes the body when he sees it. I want to somehow highlight his kind of cyberpunk scavenger-esque disregard for death. He's not fussed that this poor person is now gone and whatever's happened to them, but he does have a certain amount of respect and interest in the dead. And that, well, I want to show that somehow, so possibly very casual description of the wounds and death, so really writing that off as just run-of-the-mill. However, what can he see and observe that would indicate that he cares about who this person was as a person? Some of it will be in the language, and that can possibly be set up for when he meets the agent, so some setup in how he talks about the body as a person versus the usual cyberpunk lingo that lumps people together. Because you see that a lot in cyberpunk, that like entire groups of society are just kind of written off as whatever, like scavengers in various cyberpunk properties just being called scavs collectively, things like that. And I can't think of one right now of an example in cyberpunk for a corpse, but I'm sure there are some. And you see it in police procedurals and stuff like that, or various crime shows, how people who are going to be assassinated are written just called targets, or how they have, you know, terms like suspect and unsub and all that kind of stuff. All things that not necessarily dehumanize, but close to dehumanize a person. Whereas our guy is going to refer to this person, probably refer to them by name. Because he'll get the name when he's told, here's where you need to go, here's what your target looks like. And we can contrast that with how refer to my name, unlike both his contact and later the agent. That would be good, I think. Hello, Triangle. Are we back onto Dude Contemplates the Dead, Gets a Job, Dies grind? Yes, looking at getting chapter 2 of that done. 21st now, so we've still got 10 days, which should be enough to write 4 chapters in, since I skipped last week. I'm currently just doing a bit of outlining for what beats I want to hit, though I'm slightly worried whether I'm going to be able to fit this into the 2,000 words comfortably. It depends on how involved I make the conversation with the contact and how involved I make the fight scene. The answer to both of which should be not that involved. We'll see, I might not feel terribly inspired, or I might write like 4 pages of fight and then have to edit everything down into 2 pages. In that just a synopsis of like, what? Contemplates the dead, gets a job, dies. Yeah. That's pretty much how it goes. I've been also looking at the outline for a Lit RPG story that starts with the traditional reincarnation plot, as lots of Lit RPG does, and there is an interesting amount of thought that goes into how much of their old life do you focus on and how do you do a quick clean break for the sake of the story. I actually earlier today recorded the I had a script and finished the recording for a video on the topic of Lit RPGs with Isekai and Apocalypse and Reincarnation, and how that's kind of used as a tool in a lot of plots. So that will be coming out like tomorrow or the day after. Got through the basic overview of what my variant will look like the other day. Nice. That shall be... if you end up posting that somewhere, I might do a stream comparing them if you will grant permission for that to be used on stream. Have a chat with the contact, who I refer to them as the dog. Had some more notes, I think, as well, didn't I? Contact, who gets him the job, voice on the phone, they have a bit of banter. Okay, I could have taken slightly more in-depth notes than that, perhaps. Okay. Someone will definitely be on Royal Road. But a dog, then. Yeah, that was kind of... That was basically the vibe I was going for. I was just like, I need some name for just, like, a guy. And people generally like him and he has connections. And I thought, okay, the most obvious thing I can go for is a dog, especially because I named our main character Vulture and had a whole bit where we were discussing potential other names for him, like various scavengers, various animals. Literally, yoink your structure, you're free to make any content out of it in turn. Alright, yeah, that might be a pretty interesting stream then, to see how two different writers iterate on the same idea. What do I want to set up with this guy? Part of it will be how they deal with this, how they refer to the person, how they view and interact with them, and probably a little bit of exposition, so they can make some comments about the main character's habits, maybe call them out, or spending more time on the dead and the living. If there's a particular behavior of the main character that I want to highlight, this will be an opportunity for either of them to make a comment that will drop that bit of backstory. Went away from Cyberpunk already since I have one half-abandoned setting that could support the story. Yeah. I have a terrible... well, maybe not terrible. I have a strong habit of not quite fleshing out, but putting together the structure of a setting, and then kind of realizing, okay, well, I've explored this particular idea I was interested in, but that's kind of all I wanted out of it, so I'm not going to expand on it anymore. And what I tend to do is then, months down the line, I've got a new idea, and I rip a couple bits out of old worlds and bring them all together to fit into this new creation. And I think it works quite well. Job is slightly suspicious. I need to put some gaps in here. There we go. I can actually see what I'm writing. Yeah, get a job. The offer is slightly suspicious. How do I make it sound suspicious off the top of my head? It needs to be like at a glance, like he hears this and goes, this is not really something I want to do, but it can't be something flat out. So he can't get told by his contact, like, oh, this is gonna be... we need you to steal this super valuable thing from this guy who's like important to the corporations or whatever, because that's an obvious no. It needs to be, this is weird, but not alarming. So, the tech is asked to retrieve doesn't quite match up with expectations. So something like the particular brand or model is too high-end for where the guy ended up, or it's like, oh, this person's believed to have been killed in such and such way. It's like, well, hang on, shouldn't his implants have helped him avoid that? Something like that. But not so high-end that it immediately screams, hey, this is not something you should get involved in. To suit the themes of the story, the implant should have something to do with memories, so some kind of cranial implant. We had an eye implant with an onboard computer for Chapter 1, so something along those lines. Wait on the exact details. But all my worlds are byproducts of the stories deemed to mess, so they are stuck in a cycle of reincarnation. I wonder if you could write a story on that premise. A bunch of narratives as a whole stuck in the cycle of samsara instead of an individual stuck in the cycle. That sounds way too high concept for me to ever bother with, but potentially a bit interesting. Consider a complaint and not accepting due to low funds. That's more or less self-explanatory. We've already set up really blatantly. Where is it? Yeah, really blatantly there's just a paragraph in here that's like, oh, our main character is low on cash, so we've got this set up for this. My head hurts when this act of considering it, but it's doable. Yeah. How would you go about it? Probably take inspiration from something like Practical Guide to Evil. And I've recently watched a video on time loops from Overly Sarcastic Productions. There's a lot of theme overlap there with Cycles of Reincarnation. It's doable. Doable indeed. Consider a complaint and this is just a note for me to know what's happening in the chapter. I don't need to expand on that at all. A little bit of city description, so try to show his perspective on the living people. Like, he cares about people's lives, but not as they're living them. He cares about people being known and remembered, but doesn't actually care about them? Maybe. Not sure on that last bit. Yeah, the worst spelling mistake. He cares about people's lives but not their ass? That's ridiculous. This man does not like big butts and he tells nothing but lies. Dodge an attack and take cover, that's just a thing that happens. Win the fight with some setup ahead of time, that's just a thing that happens, then he gets home because we need him home for the plot. Very straightforward. Exchange some words with the others. There is potential here for more characterization. Do I want to take that? Will the word count allow it? Paragraph reminds me of the joke about that guy that is not known as Builder of Bridges. Not known as Builder of Bridges. I'm afraid I don't know what you're referring to. That's good, that's all good. I think I need more understanding of what to do with this. But for said layer, the main character's habits, but what habits exactly? What does he do? Woman for spending more time on the dead and the living, that's fairly obvious, but there should be a little bit more here. And then down here. You know, they've dodged into some cover, he's probably closer to the body, and then they're shouting across, you know, taking pot shots at each other while shouting, trying to shout each other down and convince each other to give in and just let them take the stuff. Is it necessary? For the sake of the plot, does it actually do anything here, or do I just feel like there should be an exchange? In my initial note when I was writing out the chapter synopsis, the chapter premises, I just put they take a job they shouldn't have curiosity, they end up fighting some people, other people trying to recover the tech, they get out of it pretty much intact and looking like they've won. Really, this chapter is supposed to be almost like a false sense of security before the actual crisis hits from the agent showing up. This is like just a build-up. We get a little bit of action. Yeah, he doesn't really need to interact with these people in particular. It might almost be better if they don't. He notices their appearance, which lines up with regular thugs or gang members, but offhand notices how they don't shout any insults or the usual stuff he expects. And that can be a tip for us, the audience, that these aren't regular gang members, these are actually professionals just trying to look like they're regular guys on the street, but he doesn't pick up on this. He's not invested enough, perhaps, in the living. You know, we can have him have some internal monologue that starts to drift towards the realization that actually these guys are up to something. Starts to realize that is distracted by keeping the body safe. That's not really commentary on anything, I think, as far as his character is concerned. That's just kind of how he is. But it is very accurate to his character, which I think is just as good, because the commentary comes in other parts of the story. And it's not like I'm trying to send some overarching message here. Like, I, as the author, don't have commentary to put forward here about living life or what you should try to remember or what's important or whatever. That's not my goal here. I'm just writing based on a prompt. So I think something like this that's for the character and not for the message, since there is no message, is fine. Kept this country away from war for decades. Do they call me Keeper of Peace? No. I've arranged dozens of bridges to be constructed. Do they call me Builder of Bridges? No. But you have one goat. Okay, I've heard the "you fuck one goat" line before. I did not know that there was more context to it. That's news to me. All right. Start working. Okay, I don't think I need anything else in terms of the outlining. Let me just take a sip of my drink quick.
Say hello to iPhone 16 Pro and save £288 in the Vodafone Big Winter Sale.
Goddamn adverts. This ongoing battle between YouTube and uBlock Origin was kind of one thing. Like, okay, yeah, I totally get why YouTube would want ad blockers to not function on their site. I think it's a bit of nonsense why they penalize certain content creators for their stuff, and then I get adverts that are just like cropped porn. And I'm like, these are the advertisers that you're punishing content creators for not being ad-friendly enough for? That's ridiculous. But whatever. They don't want ad blockers on their website, I get it. But now Google trying to remove ad blockers entirely from Chrome? That's ridiculous. You can't browse the internet without an ad blocker. You're going to get a virus. It's simply not an option. They're necessary. You can't simply remove them entirely. If you do that, your browser basically becomes non-functional. Alright. Only thing left to do then is to actually start writing. Now, I've done a couple writing exercises at the starts of streams in the past. That was a thing I did for a couple streams, and I realized that writing while talking is very difficult. So I kind of need to either write or talk. I shall try to remain interactive while I'm writing, but there might also just be long stretches of silence as I'm thinking of how to put a sentence together. Copwire, stolen content, racism, transphobia, Google don't care. Yeah, some of them are ridiculous. Some of the ads truly get absolutely wild. There was one ad I got recently for a mobile game where most of it was just the ad as normal, but then in one shot, randomly, they had a blur over one of the characters' chests, because I guess they realized that it was too much even for YouTube's lax rules. So instead of changing the ad for anything, they just put this little square box blur in the middle of the ad. You know, YouTube's editing tools for videos are kind of rubbish, but they do let you cut out or blur bits of the video so that it doesn't get demonetized or whatever. It was just like that. Like, someone asked the intern, hey, do something about this so that it doesn't get taken down. Absolutely wild. Okay, let me reread the end of this so I know where to pick up from. I want to rewrite all of this, but I'm going to stop myself. I'll probably go back and do an editing pass of the entire story once it's done, but for now, just get the rest of the words written and then you can go back and fix things. Okay. How to start first? Chapter we forever stuck in the community magazine. I don't know when they take the entries, if they've already gone through and taken everyone who applied and gotten a copy of that chapter, or if they do that after the 31st, once the contest closes. If they've already taken them and it's too late, then I will just leave it unedited. Okay. Ah, I hadn't noticed that. Alright, well in that case it will stay as it is. Whatever. C'est la vie. For the format, you shall be featured soon, VM. Oh, it's mostly fine. There's always things you see that you want to change afterwards. Whatever. Okay, we've invented a personality for the dog in these opening paragraphs. I don't think it contradicts with anything I've written earlier. I got some jaw boys on the phone, have a bit of banter. Doesn't predict anything. The dog, direct opposite of God, indeed. But if you're in Hololive, you can get both in one. Actually, speaking of Hololive, I don't know if anyone saw, but one of their talents, Oro Crony, temporarily had her YouTube channel hacked by one of those stupid, annoying crypto things. I don't know if you've ever seen them. I've seen a few different channels that I watch run into this issue where someone comes in, like privates all of their other videos and then just puts up like a live stream for Ripple or whatever crypto coin nonsense. Yeah, Crony got hacked. It was for a very short time because, you know, she's got a whole company behind her. Cover Corp was very quick on getting the channel back and removing that nonsense. But for a little while there was a crypto scam stream running on her channel. She actually took full advantage of it and did a stream not long after of her pretending to be launching a new cryptocurrency. So, great way to make the best of a bad situation, but really irritating that those people are constantly coming in and causing problems everywhere. Few things worse than a crypto bro. Also, Calliope Mori has a stream scheduled for sometime, I forget exactly when, calling out Crony for doing crypto scams, so they're really leaning into this. I think it's going to be quite funny. I would go on Reddit quickly and show you a post, but I'm following the VTuber subreddit, and sometimes they show things on there that you can't show on Twitch. I shall have to abstain. Meanwhile, you know, then can and shall be turned into free publicity, yes. You always gotta stay in people's minds, stay current and relevant. The social media grind. I don't know how I want Dog to talk, and I don't know how to transition in and out of this conversation smoothly. What did I call the other guy? Simon something? Simon North. Give me Brandon. The target's name can't be Mark because Mark is a name for it. It's something else. Good question. Did Dog talk? He's a trained professional? I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, first of all, trained professional, no. Dog is you know, a guy on the street who's got like contacts and passes contracts onto people. He's a fixer, not, you know, the head of a bounty hunters guild or something like that. It's a Half-Life reference. Oh, I've never played Half-Life. I really should at some point, considering how popular and well known it is, but no, I don't know anything about Half-Life. The closest I got was watching the Lifero video where it's him and a couple people playing multiplayer and messing around the whole time. It would probably be fitting for this type of character to have some kind of strong street accent, but I've never tried to write in a strong accent before, so I don't really know how I would go about that. And I never like them when I see them. Whenever I start seeing someone writing like "yeah" instead of "you" and stuff like that, I'm just like, this feels so awkward in text compared to how it is in speech. Spoken accents and dialects are fantastic, but written, I really don't like them. This is something I sometimes do when I'm writing, where I don't quite know how to go from one bit to another. I just start writing out bits and pieces of other things further into the story, and then come back and figure out how to connect them. So there needs to be some kind of like, hello, how you doing, and some banter or whatever here. And then they need to move over into this bit where he's actually giving him the information. I was gonna have this guy talk a lot more bombastically or something like that. You know, a bit more of a larger-than-life persona based on this, but I think I'm actually gonna have him be a little bit more muted and just vain, I suppose. Kind of a shallow person. Look like this. Throw in a swear word here and there to make the whole thing feel more cyberpunk. But overall, still pretty put together. And, you know, placeholder things in brackets. Good of a story by having it hang far too loosely in these non-connected segments. It's a danger if you have too much between them. I wouldn't write a bit of one scene and then a bit of another scene or like another chapter. That seems like you'd kind of screw yourself over if you write something further down the line. That then means you have to shoehorn something in earlier to set up for that further down the line. But when it comes to bits like this, where I know there's only like a few paragraphs or a page or two between them, then that's fine. This also gives me some idea in terms of the size of this, because there probably will be like, what, 3/4 of a page of chatting here? So about the first page of this chapter is just them starting to talk. And the first chapter is only 3.5 pages total. But I'm spending a page or so on... Yeah, like, because there'll be a little bit more talking after this, I'm spending a page or so on them talking. The in-between bit of going out will be pretty quick, because I could just have him go like, and then I grabbed my stuff and got ready. Like, scene transitions are something that I think I'm starting to get a little better on as I practice. And that can just be a paragraph or two of him grabbing his stuff, and then, like, you know, the travel to the location is just headed over, then what's a technical term for that? Whatever the word is for like a gap in a chapter, scene transition basically. But that's pretty quick. Find a target and get in a fight. Maybe half a chapter and half a page. So a couple paragraphs of him looking at the thing and looking around. People show up. I put in here like down a sewer pipe or something, like a construction site that sets us up for having environmental hazards around for this. So that will be pretty quick. There'll be a bit of description of those guys. I think this all fits into the space I've allotted, more or less. Let me just take a sip of my drink. Just thinking how I want to include the note here about the job being suspicious in conversation about the job. I feel like this dynamic here is not bad, but it doesn't leave... Like, once I started writing, I kind of realized, how do I actually naturally include details about that in this job offer to make it sound, like, flow smoothly? I guess but that's the thing, I need to, like, put in the bit that is suspicious. And at first, what I wrote here is I was going to mention the specific bit of tech he's being asked to retrieve, but now that I'm writing it, I feel like him just being told, hey, go grab, like, here's a body, go grab the stuff, kind of feels more natural. So I either need to change this or change that. They're not compatible. It needs to sound... He needs to dislike this job, but not so much that he would reasonably turn it down. Technically, I say he needs to. It would make me feel better about the way the story progresses if there were some amount of foreshadowing that things are going to go bad for him later and that he's actually getting involved with something where he's in over his head. Some of that we'll get out of what I mentioned here, with the description of the guys he fights, and how they're not quite regular street thugs, but there could be more. You need absolute discretion? Maybe. That would work in theory. In practice, you're not hiring random guy working out of his flat, the Vulture, through his contact street thug who hangs out in a bar, the Dog. These are not high-level agents. These are guys in a cyberpunk world just kind of scraping by a living. The whole discretion thing is a little more professional than the kind of operation we're running here. Ask. So, I mean, potential options. The thing he's being asked to retrieve itself can't be something super high tech, because then it would be above their pay grade. It could be something where he goes like, someone like that shouldn't have this, but then that would mean he's being given details about the person and who they were prior, and I don't think that really fits either of these characters. I can't imagine either of them going over the details of who the person was. They just care where it was and what they need to do to get it. The details on the person probably out. Details on the tech theoretically in, but kind of awkward. Details on the location, which Corpo wants this anyways. You don't need to know that. Way too on the nose. Way too on the nose. Neither of these characters would be taking the job if that was the kind of details that we had. Vulture wouldn't accept it, and Dog wouldn't be offering it if it were that sketchy. I'm trying to think what else I could... I'm like, my sources of inspiration in terms of cyberpunk deal-making and job-taking is the Cyberpunk Edgerunners anime and the game Shadowrun Hong Kong, basically. And both of those things kind of go wrong because our main characters do decide to foolishly get in over their heads. So maybe I need to alter his character a little bit to make him take something that's not actually sensible. A potential complete alternative to this conversation. The dog maybe doesn't need to be that careful about what kind of jobs he's handing out, because he doesn't particularly necessarily care about the people that work for him. They don't even really work for him, they're just people he knows he can give work to. So he could try to be a little more persuasive, maybe. Maybe I cut this, I don't make it so they want everything, and instead he uses some of the other stuff he's got on him. So like the conversation goes more like, here's what the mark has. Wow, that's a lot. I don't want that kind of heat. Client only wants this, so the rest is yours. And then he gives in because low on stock and really wants those parts. That would work better. That would work much better, I think. I'm not going to delete this yet, just in case I do decide to use it, but let's move it down for a minute and see if I can write something more like along these lines instead. Also, the model tracking is being absolutely awful today. What is going on? Slowly sliding off the side of the screen. They're asking for something on the spy, but there's top of the line arm taker to ignore. Maybe there's a more expensive set at the guy, but they did. That's message to send. Oh. Before it goes up. Here's where I need to exercise some careful self-control, because I want to put some slang term in here. Like how in Cyberpunk you could, for example, say that's a lot of eddies to leave laying around because that's what their currency is called, or that's a lot of chrome to leave laying around because that's what they refer to cybernetics as and implants as. But I first of all, don't want to take the terms from Cyberpunk. I don't know exactly how much of that is common Cyberpunk genre terminology and how much is Cyberpunk franchise specific terminology, and also I wouldn't want to accidentally link my world to something else. I'd want to come up with something original. However, that is way beyond the scope of a 5-chapter story or a magazine entry. We're not going to start doing full-on world building and coming up with slang terminology here. Most of the lingo is self-explanatory, yeah, it is. And I'm pretty sure some of it at least is copyrighted. Now, no copyright lawyer is ever going to find this story unless I become famous at some point, but that still doesn't mean that I'm going to use it. And more importantly, it evokes certain feelings. If I start talking about what Eddie's is just straight up off the table because I'm 99% sure that's from the Cyberpunk franchise, but that's not an option. And Chrome is almost certainly not a copyrighted term and not specific to Cyberpunk 2077 or Edgerunners. However, those are both super popular at the moment, and even on Royal Road, one of the highest rating ongoing stories is a self-insert in that universe. So if I use the word Chrome, people are going to think that it's from that franchise when it's not. So I can't be using those, which means I need to use something else, which means it's probably just going to be that's a lot of cash or that's a lot of gear or whatever to leave laying around, which is a perfectly serviceable sentence. It just annoys me slightly on a personal level that I know I could make the story better with some slang terms, but I'm not including them. Any actual word is uncopyrightable. Yeah, generally speaking, you can't enforce that kind of thing outside of like a specific thing you make up. Like for example, you couldn't use the word Pokemon in most things. I mean, you could use the word Pokemon, you could refer to Pokemon as in the franchise Pokemon in your work, but you can't be calling the creatures in your world that people catch as Pokemon. That's not gonna fly. I did a whole video on slang in fiction and how great it is. Yeah, show gear, whatever. I'm also not bothering with dialogue tags at the moment, since those will depend a lot on how we lead into this conversation and how we move out of it. You need dialogue tags to keep it clear who's speaking, and as it stands right now, I don't know how clear it's going to be at this point who's speaking. Bulldog's insistence at correcting things that are just like, no, this is how people talk, even if it's not perfect grammatical structure. Never mind. Welcome, Marin. Thank you very much for following. Hope you're enjoying the stream. Yeah, I think I like this version of the conversation a lot more than this version. Let me go ahead and do that. Just now we said that he's got nice gear, but it's not so nice that it's out of the realm of possibility. If he's got like 1, 2, 3, 4 things that would normally be a good haul, 4 is not so much more. If our character is taking regular jobs to retrieve things, then you could take 4 jobs in a short amount of time, and then now he gets to take 1 and have the same amount of stuff. We show him being a little bit wary about who killed him, considering how much stuff he has and whether his friend can even afford that, but we get a perfectly reasonable answer as to why the situation is the way it is. And then later on, we'll find out, once the other characters show up, that actually this reasonable explanation was just speculation, not the truth. And then he gets in a whole bunch of trouble for not being more careful. Maybe include another little bit of him thinking about how far this will go towards restocking him. 400 will exchange. No. Really fast-tracked the bit of conversation in between picking up the call and getting down to the detail. I was just thinking that I might stick something on the end here of him like trying to, because I described him as being talkative and stuff, of him trying to rope Vulture into a chat about something, but maybe I'll put that here, like they start off the call, he comes in trying to talk about unrelated stuff, and Vulture's just like, hey, get to the point, I've already been annoyed enough tonight, and then we can skip the small talk, get into the details, and then maybe have a little thing here where he goes like, you know, now about the thing, and then Vulture just cuts him off. No. You know, something like this. Technically speaking, this is all for story convenience, but by doing it like this, I think it will look and feel very natural. This is an ongoing dynamic they have. We establish the dog as someone who likes to yap. We have him come in trying to yap, and Vulture's just like, no, get to the point, and then he starts to try to yap more, and we go, no, move on with the scene. A lot of writing, and I do talk about this in my videos sometimes, a lot of writing tropes and stuff are just convenience for the author, disguised as something that's meant to serve the story in some greater way. This is just me being like, hey, I've got a word limit here that I'm trying to stick to, I gotta get things moving, but the way we're doing it, you know, it builds both of these characters at the same time, which is very convenient. Let's skip the small talk and start talking big. Case in point, MacGuffins. MacGuffins are wonderful. Who doesn't love a thing that conveniently does what you need the plot to do? The clutter ex machina. I would do like a video on MacGuffins, but I'm pretty sure that an Overly Sarcastic Productions video on that exact topic already exists, and I'm not about to try and compete with the most watched writing and world-building channel on YouTube. I think they've got that particular topic covered sufficiently. Okay. But now I also have an incentive to connect these bits up, since I wrote this because I wasn't quite sure how to lead on from here. Now that we know that we're coming in with something that we're going to return back to, for a little bit easier time setting it up. What topic would the dog want to chat about, and for some reason tries to inflict it on poor Vulture, who's really not interested? He's vain and into any new things. Celebrities probably. Let me this again because it's going to be distracting. Maybe. Author news also an option, yeah. Something like that. The segue to try and do some foreshadowing might have this job will crash and burn too. Now some news about X thing has been stolen or Corpo agents sighted. Yeah, that worked. Alright. How to put this in there? We need to let him get at least a few words in, and then we need to cut him off as quick as possible. Oh, do excuse me for a moment, there was just a knock. I've got to go answer the door quickly. Sorry about that. I gotta be honest, I forgot I even had a be right back screen until just now. It is also not functional because that stuff's supposed to be moving. Alright, 600 words. Wondering if I this much, or do maybe we need to. I think we almost certainly remove this, and maybe a lot of this as well. Keep a fight scene pretty short. Get with him. I could of course rearrange the chapters a bit, I could add an extra one or make them longer, but it would probably be better to stick to the plan. Partially because I don't want this project to grow out of control, and partially because it's just good practice for me as a writer to make sure that I can stick to the plan like that. Hello Raymond, welcome to the stream. How are you today? writing going? It's going well, I think. Gotten a fair bit done. I'm just thinking that this doesn't quite cover one of the goals I had written out for this scene. I was thinking that, you know, we could take some time with their interactions to put in some comments about the main characters and their behavior. There really isn't room for it here. I've already looked a minute ago at the word count, and to fit this in a bit over 2,000 word chapter, can't have a whole bit of conversation here, so I've basically got these couple sentences to put in some commentary on the main character. Something offhand that I want to mention here, possibly something more than that he doesn't listen to this guy besides when he really wants something from him. Not sure how much I can really say about it, just a couple sentences from someone else. Initially, did I actually make a note about what Cunt wanted to comment on? Make some comments about the main character's habits, call them out for spending more time on the dead and living. Alright. I think it's good enough, but I'm going to leave it as it is. But I can't claim to like this part of the chapter so far. It's a bit compressed, like the necessary bits are there, and I wouldn't go as far as to say that this is like an unnatural conversation. I could imagine this playing out exactly as shown, but it is pretty squished in there. Like, we're going through this very fast. Probably works a little bit better in either a TV or game format. You know, the way they do the phone calls and like update mission objectives in that always works out fine because it's meant to be very quick and it's just a here's your details and then you go off and do a mission. Like if you're playing, you know, Cyberpunk 2077, or if you're playing one of the Shadowrun games, something like that. Little more awkward here, but not, I think, in a way that I can actually fix off the top of my head. Besides changing the chapter structure, of course. If I just give myself more words to work with, then I can do whatever I want, but that defeats part of the purpose of the exercise, so yeah, just this will have to do. Okay. We've done this, we've done that, we've gotten the offer, considered it. Means up next is heading out, finding the target, quick fight, winning and getting her. All of it in 700 words for this, so 1,300 words to the 2k mark. I went a little bit over before, I'm pretty sure. It's like a 2,100 words-ish. Yeah, 2,124 words. Which covers 1, 2, 3.5 pages. We currently have for chapter 2, 1, 2, just under 2 pages. Then again, be very tight. I have to have a bit in there about him noticing some details on the people he's fighting against. And that will only be like 2 paragraphs or so. That's only like a little bit, so that's fine. Winning the fight and getting home, you can summarize super quick. It would even fit narratively that after a fight he's kind of shaken, high on adrenaline, he rushes through, so we can be really light on the detail here and just have like, oh, I grabbed my stuff, got the things, ran home. Just summarize, basically. The fight itself doesn't have to be long. We do a little bit of setup beforehand in noting some of the surroundings, the environment, just a sentence here and there with some of the objects, and then you can use some environmental hazard to end the fight quickly. You know, now that I'm listing it out, maybe I do have enough words to play with here, because a lot of this can be shortened and summarized quite nicely, I think. Enough so that it will fit into the rest of the word count pretty comfortably. Really, the fight scene is the bit that would take up a lot of time. If I had, you know, my original plan of having some mid-fight banter, there probably will be like a word or two. Have them shout out for him to surrender or something like that. But not the full back and forth I was thinking about before, so a lot of time saved there. And there won't be a lot of exchanging fire and stuff like that. I'm really in that mindset of detailed fights, partially from writing for Task Force Sparkle and partially from thinking about lit RPG like I have been recently. But I don't... for this story, that's not actually the focus. This is not an action story or anything like that, so I can go way more light on the details of the change here. and that should mean that I can do all of this quite... I think I'm gonna go ahead and figure out the exact details of how I let the rest of this play out off stream. We're at a bit over 2 hours, so I can probably call this stream here at that point. I've done a bit of writing on stream before, but not like this, where I'm just kind of quiet and focused. Overall, I think it was fairly nice. I might do more streams like this in the future. I am going to do, of course, another 3 streams for this project, for the community magazine, and those will all happen this and next week, since the deadline is the 31st of January. So that'll be pretty soon, and then afterwards we'll see if with the slot opened up, I start some other writing thing that I can carry out on stream. Now, let me have a look. Who else is live? Hey. It's a bit early for any of the other viewers I talk to be live, unfortunately. Time zones are always a delight to try and work around. In which case, let's have a... We got some YouTubers up to anything fun. The category is actually getting more and more populated. I do remember when the... what do they call the category? The writing and reading? And I really think it should be reading and writing. You don't say that way around, it's the other way around. When the category first started, there were like a handful of people ever, and it had maybe 300 followers. It's really been getting more and more people recently, which I'm quite happy about. I know there were a lot of people already doing this content beforehand, but having our own tag now has really improved things, I think. Still looking who I want to maybe raid into. Just don't recognize any of these people. I normally would try to raid to someone that I know, or have at least heard of loosely. There was a transition period where people migrated from just chatting art and abandoning their indie game. That's always a very funny one. The fact that there's certain games nobody plays and people just kind of grab up the tag because it's vaguely similar to what they do. Which, you know, fair enough, it's a good idea when you don't have your own dedicated tag. I like some of the ones they've made recently, like they've also got the miniatures tag that they've come up with. That was very good. I thought I had someone, but I think they've just finished their writing and are now moving on to gaming, so never mind. I want to try and redirect you towards someone who's doing something related. Okay, I'll just go with Twitch's top recommendation here. They look to be doing something vaguely related. That looks like sci-fi more than cyberpunk, but sci-fi is close enough. I do love me some good sci-fi. I've had some ideas recently for something related to sci-fi I could write about, but I have to firmly tell myself, no, you're writing like 3 other things already. Minimal amounts of self-control. Minimal amounts, at least. At any rate, thank you very much for joining me today. It was good for a first, like, proper focused writing stream compared to previous world-building and kind of thinking and planning streams. And I'm looking forward to doing more of them. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves, and I'll see you next time.